Hey everyone, and welcome to a tutorial by Cherokee Turner. My name is Cherokee Turner, and in this tutorial what we're going to be focusing on is the new Dehancer Pro plugin for Davinci. So I've already gone over Photoshop as well as I've gone over this exact same plugin in Premiere. It is the exact same thing as Premiere with a couple of changes. So you have all the great, amazing color profiles and coloring of Davinci. So this is going to be probably the best way to use this plugin just because Davinci is just, it's coloring. It is coloring to its greatest forte. This is the creme de la creme of coloring until you go and spend like $20,000 on another color program that Hollywood uses. But again, this is fantastic. So we're going to go ahead and just jump right into this. So I have been contacted by the Dehancer Pro people to make a tutorial on this. So I just want to let you know that I have not been paid in any way, but they did give me the program for a limited amount of time in order to make this tutorial. So it's not going to be biased. I will give you all of my personal opinion on it. So don't feel like hoodwinked, like, oh, this is great, and then it doesn't work. I personally think this is fantastic. So we're just going to go ahead and jump in right away. So let's go ahead and do this. So right at the beginning of this, we've got our node. And again, if you want to go ahead and color this up and then add the film emulation on top of that, that is up to you. Me personally, I'm just going to go show you this directly from the log footage. So we're going to go ahead and jump into it. Okay, so go ahead and right click on this. We're going to go ahead and add a node, then add the zero, not add a node. So click on this right here, and you're going to go over into your effects library, scroll all the way down to film emulation, which this is fantastic. So this gets added right when you install the program. So there's no setup. So that's a great thing from them. It's not like the Photoshop version of this where you do have to have a setup. This installs right away. You can use it. Go ahead and drag this on over to your node right over here. And you see that it goes ahead and adds a flavor to this. That is over here on the film module. Go ahead and hit that enable button, and that's going to just turn that off. We're going to get to that here in just a minute. Also, one thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to scroll down in this module and hit check profiles. And that is going to download all the film profiles as well as all of the LUT profiles and camera profiles that you're going to need in order for this to work. So that is one thing you will have to do right at the beginning. Okay. So after you get all that stuff downloaded, you're going to check the source. Right here it says Rec 709. That is actually my ending source that I'm going to be working in. So my starting source is actually the camera feed. So the camera I used here is an A7S3. You're going to want to go ahead and scroll down to choose camera, and under vendor, you're going to select Sony, and then under camera here, it says Alpha 3. I'm going to do Alpha 7S3, and then format, I'm going to go ahead and click how I recorded it. I believe it was in the S Gamut ISO 640, and just in case we're going to look at the scene. Yeah, it doesn't really change too much. So I'm going to go ahead and select S40, and I love the color of the of the Sony camera. It's just so amazing. I really enjoy looking at that. That 10-bit on that DSLR is amazing. Absolutely love it. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into this. So me personally, I like the more film effect of having really deep saturated colors, and your deep saturated colors are usually 50% and below. So I really want to keep my highlights maybe up to 60% at top. So I'm going to go ahead and pull down my exposure quite a bit, about right here. So we're just over 40% in the most of all of this. Okay. Temperature comp, I'm going to go ahead and pull this to the right. Going to give me that really nice warm look. Tint comp, I'm not going to do anything with this because it just pulls green and magenta into there, and I don't want to do any of that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. Defringe, if you had a kind of lower end lens that had fringing, you can fix that right there, and you can also turn it on or off. So I'm going to go ahead and keep that off. So with that being said, that is the input module, and we're going to go ahead and move on. Next is the film developer. This is where you're going to push and pull the contrast and the gammas and the colors of this after our input module. Contrast obviously adds more contrast, and before you do something that I did, we want to go ahead and hit enable. So go ahead and enable that module, and then do the pull and push your contrast. So we'll go ahead and pull this up, pushing a lot of that black down, as you can see in our histogram over here, but I do not want to do that. I actually want to kind of pull that up a little bit because I like that filmic gray kind of look. That is just me. I love it. And that's where I'm going to sit it. Gamma correction. So this is going to be where our midtones are going to kind of sit, and I'm going to kind of pull these tones a little bit more down just a bit. Okay. Color separation, that's going to be our colors and our midtones. You can see how they separate right here. Doesn't really do too much. It's going to be a little more saturated the lower I go. So I'm going to go ahead and set it there. And then color boost. I'm going to go ahead and boost those colors because it's going to add a little bit more of that red into his skin tone, which I'm kind of enjoying. Ooh, I kind of like that right there. A little more desat, just a little bit more desat. Cool. I like that. I'm going to go ahead and shut that down. Film. This is where those profiles come into play. Go ahead and hit enable on that. I'm going to go ahead and add that Kodak Vision 3 film emulator on there. And we have a ton of different things to choose from. There are so many different flavors of film footage that you can push into here. I really actually kind of like the Fujis because they use that kind of split tone, but you do not have to use these. You can turn it on, you can turn it off. It just kind of gives a really fun kind of profile to your footage. If you want to have something a little more automatic, or you want to push a little bit more tones into it, like this is a really cool way of pushing and pulling the footage and getting it to where you kind of want to pull it. A lot of different looks. Got Kodaks. I mean, we even have what is that? The old school Ilford, if I can find it. No. Yeah, Ilford. If you want more black and white, you want to push more of that silver tone into there, you can do that. And then you also have the enable and disable plugin. So if you want to enable that more, push it more. If you want to enable it less, have more contrast, you can do that. But me right now, I really just want to show you where I want to push this footage. So I'm going to go ahead and disable it. Awesome. So I'm glad we went over that. Next is going to be film compression. So right off the bat, hit that enable button, and that's going to go ahead and push it. Most of what it's going to do is exactly in the title, compression. So you're going to compress your white points, you're going to compress your tones. So we're going to go ahead and pull the white point up. And what I'm really wanting to look at is the whites. So that's going to be over here, your brightest tones in the footage. So if I pull that all the way down, you see that roll off goes off right down here in your histogram. But if I pull it all the way to the right, it has that roll off. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it all the way to the right. Tonal range, and that's going to move your white points down. So you see how that tone brings down and it gets a little bit more saturated. That's exactly what I wanted to do. I want to bring all those tones in. That way we don't have an absolute white. We don't have an absolute black. And then our blacks are going to be actually down here in the expand module, but we're going to get to that here in just a second. Color density is basically just the saturation point of those highlights. And I'm going to bring it up just a little bit. That way we have a little bit of that color into our bright tones here. Cool. Pulling down. All right, next is going to be our expand. This is going to be where our black point and our white point begin. And it's kind of like, where does the contrast start? So if we pull down our black point, that is where all of our contrast is going to go. It's going to go into that clipping noise or that clipping kind of look. And if I bring it up a little bit, it's going to be more of that desat, old school, less contrast. And that's kind of where I'm going. White point, you can actually pull this up and you can pull that color up with it. So see that color? It used to be almost white blown out, but now we brought it up and that color is now bringing up with our contrast. So now we have a cool kind of different look, and we've kind of brought in some color into our widest points of our image. So we've kind of saved it in a way. All right, so we're going to go ahead and so now we're just going to go ahead and toggle down the expand module here and go into our print. So this, I'm not really going to be messing around with this piece of footage right here. This is going to mess with kind of the overall profile. So it makes it look as if it was printed on certain types of photo paper. So we've got the Fuji, which is going to be more on the blue tones. We've got Kodak, which is going to be more on the warmer side, but still have that kind of low contrasty, high color kind of look. And then we have Kodak Endura, which is kind of the flavor that is right down the middle, and you can kind of play with it on your own. So if you wanted to, let's start out with the Kodak, because that's probably going to be the closest that I'm going to want to make it look with. But you can kind of bring up, bring down the targets here. Let's see, target white, bring that up. Bring that down. I'm probably not going to use it, but I just want to show you what it does. Pull up the contrast, maybe less contrast. Makes it look like a real old movie, which is kind of nice. Color density, pull up that color density, pull it down. Yeah, pull up that color density, really messes with those reds in his face right there. And then saturation, we can bring it down, pull it up. Give that old school vibe. I like it. That's cool, but I'm not going to use it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enable and toggle that back down to the print. Next, what we're going to be looking at is the color head. Go ahead and hit enable. We're going to go ahead and move on. So this is basically the old school print heads that were on the color printers. So you can mess with all the overall tones. We've got yellow, blue, magenta, green, and cyan red. So this just kind of pushes the overall color into the image. The brighter I go, the more blue, but I'm actually going to push a little bit of yellow, give it that, again, old school Western kind of look. Pull in some of that magenta just a smidgen, makes it a little bit more red. And I don't know if I'm going to pull, yeah, I'm going to put just a little bit of red, and that kind of pushes the red into his suit color here. Also, you can gang them all together. That way you can move them all at once. Shadows and tones. Do you want to push this color more in the shadows? You pull that up, and that's going to pull in that color into the shadow tone range there. And if not, you're actually going to pull color out, so you're going to get more of that blue vibe. So I'm going to go ahead and push a little bit of that. Again, same thing with the midtones. Pushing it up gives you more of the warmth, which is going to be great for his skin tone right here, but pulling it down will push more of that blue tone right through there. So that's not what we want to do on this piece of footage. I'm going to go ahead and pull that up. Next, again, shadows and highlight, or your highlight tone. Pushing that up will really start to push your shadow or your highlights. You can see a little bit of that color coming in on the highlights there. I'm not going to push that much. I do want a little bit of that highlight there. And actually, I'm actually going to take a little bit out because it's going to bring down that high point right there. Like it. Cool. Next is going to be preserve exposure. This doesn't do a whole lot, but does preserve the luminance of the entire image, which again, you can see it down in the histogram, but use your eyes. Don't use the histogram all that much for this one because you're not going to see a whole lot. And then impact. How much is this module do you want it to impact the image? And yeah, that's that. Next is the film grain. So there are a lot of things you can do. So we've got the profiles here. So if you want to add different profiles of film grain, you can see it adds a little bit up here. You can do 65 millimeter. We have all of that. But what I would say do is hit this custom button, and that's going to bring up all your options. Okay. We've got the size, which is going to mess with the size of the overall grain here. Amount. It's going to push up the amount, push down the amount. Obviously you see it hard at work right there. I usually turn this down just a smidgen, probably, yeah, about 18. Size, I do not want that crazy big. So maybe down here in the 6s-ish. Film resolution, I do want that all the way up, but if you turn it all the way down, you can see how it kind of blurs the footage just a bit and it makes it kind of old school looking. Me personally, I want that all the way up. I want it crispy, but I do want the texture. Next, we're going to look at is the shadows. So you push this up so you can push the grain into your shadows, and you can see it at work right through here. Midtones, again, you can do, you can push as much grain as you want into the midtone. So that's going to be around in his skin. And that's where I'm going to set it right about here. And highlights, you can push the highlights. So you can push grain and push it into the highlights, giving it that, again, that texture that you're probably going to miss in digital. Also the chroma, if you were working with black and white footage, you're going to want to push this all the way down. But if you're working with color footage, you want to keep it probably around 40 to 100% based on where you like it. You're not probably going to see too much of a change, but there is a change, but it's just slight. Also, you have the film type, positive and negative. Negative pretty much takes it away. Positive is there. Analog and noise. So I personally do not like digital noise. I just think it makes footage look like trash, but that's me personally. Again, this is a Dehancer thing. So if you want to make it look bad, there it is. And then you have your analog grain right there. But this is where I'm wanting it, and that is where I'm going to keep it. So we're going to go ahead and toggle down our film grain. Next is halation. So we have kind of the same parameters. We've got custom, and we have all the different flavors, 35 through 65, also custom. I'm going to go ahead and enable this and hit mask mode, and we're going to see right off in our mask mode where it's taking us. So you see these few little dots here. That is where it's looking, or that's where it's wanting to put the halation. It's based off of bright points around edges. So the less the limiter, the more that goes. The more the limiter, the less it goes. Background gain, how much of it do you want it? How smooth do you want it? The local diffusion, how it's more along the lines of how big is that limiter. Then you have global diffusion, and then you have amplify, take it in, take it out. Hue, you can kind of change the color of it, but it's mostly going to be red. Blue compensation, again, that's going to just compensate the blue tones. And then how much do you want it in there? Impact. So if we turn this mask mode off, you can kind of see this enabled and disabled. So you see it adds just a little bit of that red in. Let's go ahead and amplify it up a little bit just so you can kind of see it. So this is enabled, disabled. So you see around here with those tones, it's got a little bit of a red. Me personally, I do not like it. I don't want to de-hance my footage that much. I'm gonna go ahead and turn that off. Bloom is virtually the same thing, except it messes around with just the whites. So off the bat, it definitely has a little bit more of a value than the halation does, just with its normal setting. So with it has the exact same parameters. So we've got highlights down here, messes with the highlights, but we don't have a lot of highlight just because it's way down here in the like 60% area. Source slimmer, the less you have, the more you have, the more you have, the less you have. Details, how detailed do you want your bloom? Which me personally, I don't think you need a very detailed bloom. Amplify, pull that up, pull that down. How much of it is in there? Save lights. Do you want it to be real thick? Do you want it to be real thin? Saturation. Do you want it to be messing with the saturation of your footage? And impact, how much of it do you want in or out? Go ahead and take this mask mode off, and you can kind of enable this and disable it. You can see it's just adding a little bit in there, which I personally do like. I do like a little bit of bloomage. It kind of messes with, makes it look like you have a diffusion filter on top of your film, or on top of your camera, which is pretty nice. Me personally, not going to use it for this one just because I don't like it for this shot. I think it should have a little bit more of the yellowy tone. I wish that was a thing that was in here, but that's okay. I could probably push it a little bit more in Davinci, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and disable that because I don't want it for this footage. Next is going to be film damage. What damage do we want to put on our film? Go ahead and put custom. We've got dust. So this is where this one differentiates from Adobe Premiere. So if you add the dust, you can add the scale of the dust, the size, how much white and black. I'm going to go ahead and play this back. It's going to be somewhat slow, and it would be nice if I enabled it. Here's the dust. You can see it speckles around, makes it look old, but in combination with all of these things, you can really kind of push it to where it looks really cool. So scale, size, how much white. I don't like the white. Here's with those added. So actually, let me take this dust enabled. Here's hairs enabled. So it kind of has the hair kind of dusty around there. All that's enabled. Scratches. I'm going to go ahead and just turn all this stuff up. You can see where I'm going with this. The more you push into this, the better. I mean, it's just adding that really old school look. You might want to like desaturate this footage for this just because it wouldn't look this good with it. So you really want to kind of like dehance it to use this. But if this is the overall look you're wanting to go for, absolutely push it as far as you want it. But the option is there, and this is the only version, the Davinci Resolve version of Dehancer is the only version with this in it. So if you want this, you have to use Davinci. But I'm going to go ahead and turn this off because I don't want it. Not for this version of the footage, at least. Next, we're going to go over film breathing, and I'm going to enable this, turn it on custom, go ahead and push this up. One of the cool things about Davinci is the fact that it works really, really well with footage. Premiere doesn't work this well with footage. Like I'm able to play back all of this stuff in real time, and it just works. It works really, really great. So it just kind of messes around with kind of the color hue over a period of time. It's very subtle, but you can make it really, really like, let's just turn all this up. How bad can we make it look? Yeah, you can really see it on there. So it's just kind of messing with the bulb and how it really like looks. It makes it look like the bulb is about to go out. That's film breathing. Go ahead and turn that off. Next we have is gate weave. Again, we're going to go ahead and custom and enable, but you also have all the other flavors, 16 millimeter, 35 millimeter, 65, got it all. So let's go ahead and see what this looks like at the beginning. Not a whole lot, a little bit of jitter. Let's turn the period down, translation X, translation Y, maybe a little bit of rotate. Yeah, you see how that's working? It's just kind of moving around just a little bit. It's pretty nice. Pretty nice. All right, but that is gate weave. Go ahead and unenable that because I don't want it. Now, vignette. Everybody should know what a vignette is, but if you do not, I'm going to go ahead and show this down real quick. Feather, exposure, bloop, bloop, bloop. I'm going to go ahead and enable that. I keep forgetting to enable that. Basically, it puts either a hot point or a low point on your footage. And whenever you feather this out, you can see it messes with the outskirts of this circle. So exposure up will give you a brighter edge. Putting it down will give you a lower edge. And then if you change the size, make it real big, you can kind of make it a focal point. You can also change the aspect ratio, which up is going to be more vertical, down is going to be more linear, giving you more of that anamorphic kind of size. You can also move around on the center. So if you want to push this over 100 pixels, you can. If you want to push it over 12 pixels, you can. It is there for what you need. I'm going to go ahead and push 0. Actually, if I just do 1, Do one. Yeah, see, it goes over there. Okay, boom. But you can do that. I'm not going to put a vignette on it just yet. Monitor. This is for your monitor. You can turn on your false colors, which I'm not going to do. Clipping. You can also check your clipping, false colors, clipping, all that stuff. I'm not going to do that, as well as you can turn this basically on and off, or just kind of push the tone into your LUT generator here, or push the tone into the footage onto your other nodes. Since we just kind of pushed it all into one thing, I'm going to go ahead and keep that as the total impact. The last thing you can do is you can actually save this all as a LUT. So if you don't do any film grain, film damage, film breathing, gating, vignetting, or anything like that, halation, all that stuff, as long as you don't do that, you can actually export all of this out as a LUT, and you can import it into Premiere, Photoshop, any program that accepts LUTs, which is cool, which is, fantastic. I mean, that's a great little addition that is available in the Davinci version of this plugin. Well, everybody, that is it for the Davinci version of the Dehancer Pro plugin. My personal opinion about this in the Davinci version, I believe this is the best version. The absolute best version of this plugin. So you can get it for Premiere. It's great. It's slow because Premiere has been slow for the past 5 years, and it feels like it's getting worse and worse and worse. But the Davinci version of this plugin is really where it shines. Like, it's great. It's fantastic. Everything's being put in there. You can watch it back in real time. You can color it in Davinci. Everything is there. It works. It's amazing. It doesn't crash the plugin. I haven't had it crash it so far. I truly, really, really enjoyed working with this. I mean, it's super fast. I mean, it goes on the fly. They really made it work. And that is my personal opinion. It is the best version of this. So I went from Photoshop, which is a great version. It's a little slow, to Adobe Premiere, which is a little bit faster, still great, but a little slow. And then Davinci. It's the perfect version of it. It's not perfect, but it is the best version. I will iterate that. Can't iterate that enough. It is the best version of this plugin. If you can get it for Davinci. Anyway, everybody, thank you so much for watching this kind of quick tutorial about Dehancer Pro. I truly, truly enjoyed using it. Also, you can use my discount code CT Films, which is going to be in the description below. You can get a little bit off if you are wanting to get this plugin. Please check it out. I mean, you can check out the light version. They've got a free version out there. It just has a little emblem on it. That way you can at least check it out for free. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time.